I'd like to call this meeting, a regular meeting of the Vergennes City Council to order on October 20, whatever it is, I don't have my glasses on. 23rd at 5:30. Would everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have two amendments to the agenda. One will be item F, Basin Task Force appointments, and that's really to check if there are any further appointments to that task force. And G, Truck Traffic Safety Committee. Okay, so we'll move on. No visitors recorded. Minutes. Need to have a motion to approve the minutes of October 9th.
I'll make that motion.
The motion has been moved and seconded. Okay, any amendments to the minutes?
I had one correction. Under non-retaliatory statement on the first page, 1, 2, 3, fourth line down, of incrimination should read of discrimination in public spaces. That was all I had.
Anybody have anything else? Okay, we have a motion to accept the minutes as amended. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion is carried. Any questions on the warrants, by the way?
You did have a highlight on the firehouse boiler. Is that a reason?
Yeah, that was just a note between Greg and I that when it was originally coded, they retrofit the firehouse to accept natural gas, and it had been coded to City Hall, so we were just working internally to make sure it was
I
corrected.
didn't know if you highlighted to tell us something.
Just making sure you're paying attention. Thank you.
Okay, citizen comments. Any comments from citizens out there? Anyone? Okay, we move on. First item of business, item 5A, presentation by Rick Chaput and Wastewater Treatment Plant Supervisor, and Jim Larrow, Supervisor DPW. Who's on first?
I had just asked the gentleman to join us. As I've been getting acclimated into my role, both Rick and Jim have been outstanding assets to me in that capacity. And Jeff, Fritz, and I had an opportunity to tour the McDonough pump station with Rick within my second week. And I just thought it might be beneficial to the council at large to get it kind of straight from the front line as to what we're experiencing, where we are, and some steps that we're taking going forward to control the situation that we face down there.
Jim, you said you do everything?
Oh, yeah. I think you want to know more about wastewater facility than the collection, so I'll let Rick talk.
Good to meet you.
That's good, thanks. I just got a couple handouts here. All right, Mark.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I'll explain what it all means.
Is that the planet Pluto?
This shows that Rick can color inside the lines.
That's the planet Rick and I live on.
So this is going to be a real high-level overview of what's going on. And when Matt says the situation we're facing down there, I assume, Matt, that we're talking specifically about our CSO, our overflow events that occur that end up in the media, and what we're doing to remedy those. So I guess right off the bat, the first thing that we need to clear up is any misconception of where we overflow. I think it's often portrayed that the wastewater plants overflow, and that would be the plant on the west side, over on the parking lot side. That doesn't overflow. Where we overflow is actually at the McDonough pump station, which is on the east side. What happens is, in understanding the collection system and sewer in general at a high level, when the sewer leaves your house, it goes out to an interceptor pipe, a bigger pipe. And everything, for the most part, runs gravity. It just simply runs out of your house, downhill, and ends up either at a pump station or directly to the wastewater plant. Here in Vergennes, McDonough Drive takes everything east of Otter Creek. That's a substantial amount of wastewater that comes down there. Most days, we're talking about 280,000 gallons in a 24-hour period. And that'll get us to the chart. The first chart, first page that you're looking at there, it's a 24-hour chart. So my operator will come in the morning at 7-ish, put the chart on, and this thing will chart for 24 hours in a circular motion. The chart actually turns on a pen, and the pen just scribbles and writes the gallons per minute over a 24-hour period. So what we're looking at here on a standard day, as you see on the first chart, that's a roughly 200, we'll call it 200,000 gallons over 24 hours. You'll see that it goes, you can disregard those spikes that kind of come up, look like a porcupine. Those are pump stations turning off and on, and we have a case where things back up and kind of surge through. So those are you can kind of throw those out. What we're looking at is the median. So if you look, it kind of makes a nice lobe as it goes around 24 hours. So if you go to the second page, what we're looking at is that's a storm event. And to be clear, what this is measuring, this is actually the flow coming into my wastewater plant, and the majority of the flow coming in is coming from McDonough Drive. So this is really a direct correlation to what's going on at McDonough Drive. What's significant here is that the vertical lines going up, each one you'll see starts at the bottom. You'll see there's a 1 about midway up the page, and then a 2. That 1 is 1 million gallons. The 2 is 2 million gallons, and then if it was at the top of the chart, it'd be 3 million gallons. Between the hash marks, the 1 and the 2, each little dot, which they're hard to read, is 100,000 gallons. Okay, so you can see what happened there, and what's more important is that the vertical lines, the little space in between, is 15 minutes each. So you can see on this day, we went from doing roughly 150, 200,000 gallons a day if we had continued. But within 15 minutes to a half an hour, we raced up to almost 1 million gallons a day. So, 1,000% increase. You're talking huge numbers. And if you go to the next page, this is an average rainfall event, but the next page shows you the more severe condition. Yeah, so that's, you see we're at, I think we're about 400,000 gallons. It had been raining for a sustained period of time. And then you see within 15 minutes, we have a sudden storm surge, and it races up. What's significant about that is that when we talk about the problem, where the problem's coming from, we often talk about broken pipes underground. We have a lot of old clay tile pipe, and Jim can speak more to how much we have and where we have it. We've been working on it. We've got plastic pipe, we've got AC pipe.
AC, truss, and you also have transite and ABS.
Yeah, so got a cornucopia of pipes out there. And what happens is under the frost and just old age, some of these pipes have been in the ground 80 years, they've been there a long time. They've moved over time, cracked, broken. The clay tile pipe literally washes itself out. If you look at a profile of it, there is no bottom to the pipe in a lot of cases because the flow over time has just worn the pipe out. So the water comes in, goes into the pipe. I'm not going to get into a bunch of terminology. We'll call it infiltration. There's I&I. There's a whole, alphabet soup of words, but we don't really need to get into them. The big thing is infiltration. But if you think about what I'm talking about, the water going into the pipes, that takes some time. The water's got to go through the ground. It's got to find its way into the pipe. We're talking about a 15-minute time frame here from the time rain hits the ground and I'm receiving it at the pump station. So the problem is probably more significant. We're looking at roof drains, flat buildings. We're looking at sump pumps in homes. We're looking at roof leaders, which are the drains on the roofs that might be connected, and that's going to be more in town. Water running down the streets. You'll see we've got a lot of little hills in town, and anywhere where there's a hill and at the bottom there's a manhole, you see the water runs down pools around the manhole, and where does it go? No matter how tight you try to tighten them up, it goes in. So it's just one big impervious surface. Water's coming down and ending up into the sewer. So it's a pretty drastic problem in a short period of time. The solution is likely going, it gets a little complicated, but the solution is likely going to end up being a tank on the east side of the river near McDonough Drive to absorb some of this flow coming in, but we're just starting conversations with engineers as to what the solution will be. The reason I say a tank, and this is important to understand, is that people often jump to the conclusion, they say, well, we could just put bigger pumps in, and that would pump it over, and we'd be good, then you wouldn't have an overflow. You're absolutely right, that would solve the problem, but it would move the problem across the river to the wastewater plant, and now your wastewater plant can't handle an extra 3 million gallons that's coming in. So we're back to where we were in 2001 with our wastewater plant constantly overflowing. So the idea really, just to be clear, the solution to the problem is to fix the aging collection system. That's very expensive, and quite honestly, we don't really know where the problem is. So the second best solution at this point is to try to deal with, and we are mandated under 1272 order by the state of Vermont that says you absolutely have to fix this. This has become 911, we don't want it happening anymore. Stop it now. So we're going to try to deal with the problem at McDonough Drive pump station, see if we can stop the overflows, absorb that sudden surge that comes in, and slowly pump it over the wastewater plant as it can handle it. The other problem I think that Matt was surprised to find out about was, and I know Mel Hawley had spoken at length about the rags issue. That can be a hard one to get your head around, but what happens is the pumps down at McDonough Drive, there's 2 of them, and each one is capable of pumping at max 1,000 gallons per minute. So without getting into all kinds of math, you can see we're dealing with a lot of water, and 2,000 gallons per minute pumping can just about keep up. But the problem is when we have no rain, people are putting things down the drain that don't belong down the drain, things that won't flush, wipes, the sanitary napkins, things of that nature that just won't degrade. And when all this rain comes, it comes at the worst possible time, washes all that stuff down that hasn't been moving because we've got this sudden hydraulic surge, pushes it into McDonough Drive, the pumps take it up, and now the pumps aren't built or designed to move that much mass. And so now your pumps that are capable of pumping 1,000 gallons per minute max are probably cut in half or worse. And it's at the worst possible time. So we know what the problem is, we know where the problem's occurring, in essence, but we do need a collection system fixed. Jim and I have been working kind of hand in hand. There also has been some logistics issues in the past where Jim has traditionally been tasked with, the highway department has been tasked with the collection system as a whole, whereas the pump stations have fallen under my control. Jim and I have done a really good job communicating with each other, trying to work as a team to figure out the problem, but it's going to be more crucial going forward because, as you can tell, I can't fix my pump station problem without working with Jim to fix the collection problem. So we've kind of started to put our heads together to try to figure out where we can go with this.
On the wastewater collection side, clay tile, for those of you who don't know, it's a 3-foot section of pipe, belled on the end, and you take another 3-foot section, you slide them into each other, and that's it. There's no seal. So every 3 feet, you're getting infiltration. If a root the size of one hair on somebody's head goes into that pipe and grows up to the size of my finger, it's going to bust open that bell and break that pipe. And then you're going to have more infiltration. In City of Vergennes right now, from what I can tell on the map that Carol and I came up with before he retired, we still have about 40% clay tile in the City of Vergennes. And then you have transite, which is asbestos pipe, and we all know about asbestos. That is 12-foot sections. They are coupled together with a couple, not a bell, and there is a small gasket, but that fails pretty fast, and that's a very weak pipe. ABS is a very good pipe. That was I would say probably late 60s before Schedule 35. And then there's truss, which is also glued. ABS and truss are glued together, so we don't have a whole lot of infiltration there. And then now we use Schedule 35, which is gasketed and sealed once we put it together. But 40% throughout the city is clay tile. And I have run across, and it's going to be a hard thing to do. There are many homes and businesses in the city of Vergennes, when it starts raining, those sump pumps immediately turn on, and they are connected into our wastewater. And that's a lot of water. I know one development area in Vergennes, I believe every house is hitched, every sump pump from every house goes into our sewer system, our wastewater system.
Yeah, I think we need to create an environment that people feel like they can come forward to. Right now, I think people feel like they don't want to let you know they've got a sump pump. It's a real issue because this has another component to it, which is we don't have a comprehensive stormwater system in town. And it's hard to ask someone to disconnect their pipe, their sump pump, and pump into their neighbor's yard.
And some places can't pump into their neighbor's yard because they're too low. There's places on Main Street, they have no place to go but into our sewer. There's no place for them to put their water, unless you wanted to run out onto the sidewalks down Main Street. So it's a tough situation. It is.
The funny thing is that I think we have on our books and in the ordinances that we can actually say to somebody, take the pipe out.
That is true.
We have that authority now.
Yes, you do.
It's never been really exercised because of what you have said, because there's no place for the water to go.
No place for it to go.
And so it's there, but there's not much we can do about it.
And as Rick was referring to my stormwater system, the city's stormwater system, that's something we are very lack of. Maple Street has a stormwater system. East Street, which is all downhill where the grade school is, that has no system whatsoever. It runs down to the bottom where there's only a catch basin on each side. The rest of it just goes out onto New Haven Road and out into Mossy Brook. There's just very few stormwater systems on our streets in Vergennes. So it's going to be hard for the public to find places for their sump pumps to go to discharge.
So I guess my question would be is, are we working on, or should we be working on some sort of a plan relative to the distribution system as to, what are the worst places that we can find, and do we start working to replace those first and just have it in some sort of a plan where we're going, it may be slow, but at least it's a plan of getting some of those done?
Yep, that's a great idea. Of course, what it comes down to is the dollars, because as Rick stated, I know the clay tile is there, and some of it I have dug up has been, oh my gosh, it looks like they just put it in yesterday. Mm-hmm. So everything would have to be televised. Mm-hmm. And in order to televise, it would have to be clean. So we're looking at about $2,700 a day for a camera and a vac truck to do that. And it's a very tedious, slow job of doing it. Mm-hmm. But that would be a great way to start, because I pretty much know where probably 90% of that clay tile is, so I could go directly to those manholes, clean them out with a vac truck and start running the camera up them and to view them, and everything comes back to me. So I can just plug it right into my computer to look at it, but I'm always with the guy anyways. But there's some places that I don't know exist, which I have found another one about a year ago. I didn't even know there was a sewer line there. And that's another thing the mapping is helping with, which I'm trying to finalize now, the grant that you folks got, which thank you very much.
Are they doing any televising related to that?
No. It was just, they went back and looked at all the history of the maps that the Vergennes had, and they were trying to put it on another map for me, and it didn't work out real good. So when the time is available, I've been going back and moving their lines, because their lines aren't where they are, where they're supposed to be. But I believe in another 2-3 months, we're gonna have a great idea where every line in the city of Vergennes is for collection, not for homes. We have no mapping of the homes, which that is a very unusual thing too. We're one of the very few communities that do not have mapping for everyone's private sewer lines. So that,
Yeah, and there are several, and in some places, there are several homes that are connected to a line that just kind of, I have one in the back of my house. You should know that. And I'm not quite sure how many houses are connected to it. It's not a city line, but it connects to a city line.
You're talking about your house personally?
Yeah.
Your house does connect into a main line that comes from the pump station over in the Hollow-Rennie that ends up down on Alden Place, but you have a very long private sewer line. Yep, because I dug it up to fix it. It's a long ways, and that's it's going to be a long, hard battle, because there's not a lot of grant money out there for that right now. It's just not here. Stormwater, I believe in the next couple of years that's going to be coming.
It is.
It already is, yeah. As Matt knows, we just applied for our Class A to do our stormwater inventory, and they're requiring us to get that done within the next year. And then we have to fix a percentage each year for the next 20 years. It's going to be mandatory to do, which we have one of the easy ones because we're 1 square mile. So I pity some of the other towns.
So it was $2,400 a day to do the televising.
Televising and cleaning of the lines.
Roughly how many days would you estimate you'd need to do that to get what you wanted information-wise? We were talking a week, we were talking a month?
Oh no, roughly probably 3 months.
3 months?
Yeah, we've bounced, thrown around in the past, a camera would probably be the single best investment we could make as a group. That with Vermont Gas coming through as well. You get a plug now, we can't can't run an auger up it.
No, I have to wait for a camera. I would never put anything down a line right now, not without checking it first because of the gas line.
That's where I'm going with
Buy
that.
with 3 months worth of renting?
Well, it is and it isn't. The camera that costs so much, it's a track machine with a spotlight on it. I mean, we'd love something like that. We're talking about like a $10,000 camera, and what you do is you still have the video of it and everything, but you have to push it. So if it comes to a problem, sometimes you can't push it through the problem to keep going. But a camera would be great, especially now with Vermont Gas in town. I tried to get them to purchase one for us, and I come really close, and then they back down.
Well, does the council have any questions or comments?
I'm curious to know, Jim, if you have any idea of how many sump pumps you think might be connected to the system. It seems like a pretty immediately
I wouldn't dare to
easily
guess,
solved
only
problem.
because I only know of the ones where they have called me when they've had a problem
Right.
with their line, and I've gone down to their basement to help them. And I sort of go like this.
Right.
Keep talking to them. So I don't know, probably half of them that are out there. I know in like the place I was talking, there's probably 12 homes.
Right.
So right there on that one road, there's 12 homes that are all connected to it.
I know there are a number of programs floating around to assist homeowners with disconnecting their sump pumps from the system, but it is expensive. It can be $500 to $1,000. And there are programs for assistance that I don't know might still be available or not.
And it's not so bad once you get out of this part of Vermont, because an easy fix is, in layman's terms, is to dig a big hole, fill it full of wash stone, and let it slowly sweep out there. But you can't with clay. It's been tried. It's just, I know the house that tried it up off Green Street, he had a water problem in his backyard, and he did exactly that, and it just wouldn't go anywhere.
So I have an ice rink in my backyard in the winter. Because when they dug the sewer lines once upon a time, they backfilled it with dirt, and it just holds that water a
does.
long time.
Yeah. So I wouldn't dare to guess on the, how many sump pumps. It's probably.
Quite a few.
Yeah, quite a few, yeah.
Any questions or comments?
I'll just comment that in Middlebury, when you sell a house and you go to get your CO, they actually physically come to your house and see if you have a sump pump, and you cannot sell your house till the sump pump is disconnected and directed somewhere else. But you can't have people's basements filling up either, so it's kind of a catch-22. But even if you could get half of the people off, and there's logical places, there's always ditches and things that you could send the water to, even if we took that much out,
Right,
it would help.
right.
So that might be something to think about for
Well, if you're
doing our
talking about
COs.
$500 expense, when you're buying a house, that's not a whole lot. Putting down $300,000, another $500 to fix that. It's a lot when it's the only thing you're doing, but if you're in the middle of the purchase, then hey.
But that's the only way you really can get into a house, you know?
Right.
Well, thank you. Oh, yes, Andy.
How many tanks are you talking about on the east side of County Drive? Has there been any discussion of that yet, or is that just preliminary?
That's preliminary. We've got an RFQ out. We've got 4 engineering firms that are currently looking at the job. There are some physical restraints over there as well with the road and the river and what the state will let us build, and it's going to be a trick, for sure. And the storms vary. One thing I didn't touch on is that we were required to put in an overflow structure. So when we have an event at McDonough Drive, we can measure it to the gallon. That we were made to do that. Some of the surrounding communities still do what we call the telltale method, and it's actually in our permits that you would just put a stick on the overflow pipe, and after a rain event, you check, and if it's missing, you had a rain event, and then you estimate how much the water was. That's how it works. So we often end up on the leaderboard of overflows with Rutland and Burlington. We're often right up there, and it's because Burlington, Rutland, some of Burlington can measure their overflows, and the numbers are staggering when you know what they actually are. But that being said, some of ours have been 25,000 gallon overflows, others have been hundreds of thousands of gallons. So in terms of how big the tank needs to be, boy, it is a challenge. Weather seems to be getting more intense as well.
Could you use, have there been discussion of multiple smaller tanks? Even?
Sure. There's many options. Again, I think the footprint there is going to be the deciding factor.
And just for clarification, we're talking about $25,000 of overflow. We're not talking $25,000 of raw sewage.
Yes, actually, gallons. Yes. And actually, thank you, Mark. That's actually a great question.
That's huge.
And we all have a responsibility to be able to answer people with this question. Okay, and so 99% of sewer to begin with is water. The last 1% is actually your pathogens, your constituents, your things that are going to pollute. What happens, again, when we look at the chart, if on any given day we've got 200,000 gallons, 280, 250,000 gallons coming into the plant, now we've got 3 million coming into the plant. That's rainwater. It's all rainwater. I don't like to get into this conversation too much because I end up sounding like I'm defending the overflow, and I'm certainly not defending the overflow, but it is not raw sewer. It's often portrayed that we have dumped 25,000 gallons of raw, and that's usually the word they use, raw sewer.
Yep.
And it's very misleading to the public, and I think it's not helpful in the long run.
It's a very minute amount.
It is.
So small.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So, yeah, that's where we're at.
Okay, well, thank you very much. That information was very good.
You can go home and hang those on your wall.
Okay, we'll move on to item 5B, recommendation regarding banking services for the city.
Thank you. As we all know, Citizens Bank is leaving town towards the end of November. Joan and I conducted a series of interviews with 2 local banks and made a decision. Our recommendation and our request to the City Council for approval is that we would move forward with this, the National Bank of Middlebury as our bank for our city finance, our city businesses. It doesn't really require anything more of the City Council than just your approval for me to sign the documents. Any questions?
So I'll need a motion to authorize the city manager to sign the corporate authorization resolution.
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments about that? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you all.
Okay, we move on to 5C, clarification Bixby deed and board appointments. Do you want to hit that one, or you want me?
Oh, thank you. So, at our last city council meeting, there was some conversation regarding the appointment of a trustee to the Bixby board, and it sparked a need for clarification. We were able to get a hold of the Bixby deed, which I have circulated to the group, and Paula was kind enough to forward the Bixby bylaws to me as well. In looking at the 2 documents, it was kind of hard to ascertain which one was subjugated, to the other. So we actually put it up to our city attorney, Jim Oumet, for his to get clarification from him. And his clarification was very clear that the deed, any document is going to be subjugated to the deed. The deed is the principal document, and any decisions or conversations that take place afterwards, any adoption of bylaws, if they don't support the deed, they're basically invalid. So Jim's finding was that the Bixby board can recommend anyone that they choose to recommend. The city council is not obligated to accept that recommendation, but may choose to. The deed presides over the bylaws as always. So there were, I think this was a great process, particularly for me to go through in my new role, but nothing was wrong with the Bixby making a recommendation. There was nothing wrong with us not taking action on that. What I do think that has happened in the interim is that we've had now a total of 3 outstanding candidates who have voiced interest in joining the Bixby Board of Trustees. And my recommendation to the council is that on our next scheduled meeting on November 13th, the interested candidates would be able to come and have an opportunity to speak to the council about their interest.
Sound good? Mm-hmm. Very good. Okay, for the next meeting, we'll have the 3 candidates, hopefully they can all attend, 3 candidates speak to us, and we'll make a decision from that. And since the deed is what takes precedence with this, what we will be doing is making a designee, and actually the trustees are the appointing authority. They are, and so all we're doing to them is saying, look, this is our designee, you need to appoint it. Now, the way the deed is written, they don't really have a choice because it says that they will appoint our designee. But if we don't designate anyone, we just take no action, then the trustees can just move ahead and appoint whoever they want for that position. So that's That's what the deed says. Just for purposes of public clarification, I know you all have seen that, so. All right. We'll move on past 5D, because that's appointment of the trustee, and we'll be doing that at another meeting. Okay, next one is 5E.
So I apologize for the acronym. I meant to clear that up before we left, but the Vergennes Revolving Loan Fund Committee has met twice with Colin Davis, who is a principal of SHACKSBURY CIDER. And it is the opinion of the Vergennes Revolving Loan Fund Committee that a loan of $50,000 be granted to SHACKSBURY. Their intention is to purchase they want to really move production to their new location at Kennedy Brothers. And they have an opportunity to purchase some used and some new equipment. This loan request is part of a larger financing package that SHACKSBURY is going after. And I've included the details in your packet. The loan committee did attach some contingencies to the granting of the $50,000 loan, requiring them to obtain business income insurance, which came from a member of the committee. The loan will be held against a specific item that we feel that the committee felt had very low depreciation rate, should retain its value. Both the business partners need to sign on the note. They need to obtain the rest of the backing. So as I said, this was a portion of the total package that they're trying to obtain, and the committee is glad to support them with a letter of intent and give them the loan, provided that they're able to get all the funding pulled together. And then obviously we require the approval of the city council to grant them that loan.
So I guess I need a motion to approve that loan with the conditions as outlined.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded.
I'll second it.
And, I know. Any questions about that? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you all. I will say that prior to granting this to SHACKSBURY, we had $103,000, so we've taken it down by almost 50%, which is good for keeping the loan going forward. But if anyone's interested out there, you're going to want to come sooner rather than later.
Okay.
Yep,
Using it.
agreed.
Yeah, because actually, if we don't use it, it'll be taken away. The state would love to get its hands on that money. It came through when we did a project many, many years ago on rehabbing a facility. And it's actually federal money from the very beginning. It goes through the state. And created that revolving loan fund, loaned it to a lot of places. And we've been lucky that they've all been paying back, so we actually have money in the fund. We still have, how much in the fund after this?
52,000.
Okay.
And you can never lend more than 50% of its balance.
Mm-hmm. Okay, item 5F, Basin Task Force. I just put that on there because we still need some appointments to be made. I don't know whether the council has any further appointments to make. Remember, it's now a council committee, so you need to be thinking of people who you would want to have on that. Okay, we'll move on to 5G.
How many more people do we want?
You know, I tried to find I know that we have a council member, the council member on it. We have the 2 partnership members. And then,
We got Bill Benton last time.
did the Recreation Committee appoint anybody to go on to this committee? Remember, there's
They
a,
haven't met again.
okay,
They don't meet till November 3rd, I think.
okay. So we'll need a person from the Recreation Committee to go on to this one. And then, did we appoint any?
People. You need two more
Two more?
residents.
Okay.
2 more residents and a recreation person.
Okay. Truck Traffic Safety Committee.
Yeah, I just want to report that we have a fully assembled committee. Emily Tupper from North Main Street and Mike Kennedy from West Main Street are joining David and Heidi Mahoney and myself. And our first meeting was tentatively scheduled for next week, but that's a little tight for everyone, so it'll be the first week of November. So we'll have more to report at our next meeting.
Okay, thank you. Okay, City Manager's report.
Thank you. You know, recycling, dying trees, sewer, I'm living the dream, guys. You know, so just, you know, I always try, you know, some of the stuff I try to remember, you know, how Mel communicated. And we have a tree on city property on the Bixby lot that I sent a picture around. It is clearly dead and does pose a hazard, particularly once we get into winter. So I have approved the Bixby Library to contact Northland's Job Corps Urban Forestry Program to have that removed at their earliest convenience. And again, I just want to make sure that you guys are aware of, I guess, what I'm doing. That's that. Addison County Solid Waste District and Recycling. At our last meeting, I had communicated that I was going to be meeting with the Waste District and our local hauler, C&J hauler. That meeting did take place. Tomorrow night, I will be meeting at the city manager's office with representatives from Ferrisburg, Waltham, and I'm still waiting to hear from Panton about, you know, what, again, as Rennie said, this isn't necessarily our problem, but I'm trying to pave a path forward. So that meeting will be taking place tomorrow evening. I don't have, I'm optimistic by nature, but I don't really have a lot of good to say about, you know, where we are in this process. The clock is ticking. I think we're down to 9 or 10 weeks before the end of the year, and a solution has to be determined before December 31st. And that's my objective, is to get a plan in place that will, you know, take care of everybody who currently participates in our recycling program. But there's just not a lot of time, and there aren't a lot of options available, you know, to us. You know, you'll notice in the warrants, you know, the recycling for Casella went up from 6,200 in June to, you know, we're over 7,700. You know, I met with Casella last week. You know, it's over $9,200 a ton starting in January, and it's a budget breaker for all the communities involved. So we're trying to find an interim step. As I'm sure you read in the Addison Independent, the Waste District is trying to get a parcel in Ferrisburg to do a transfer station, but that will not be in place, obviously, by January 1st, 2019. So I'm trying to find some interim steps that'll help us get through. Thank you.
Do we need a building?
They do need a small shed. It's got to be some sort of enclosure, and they do believe, Lynn, that it'll have to be staffed. So there probably need to be some sort of dry facility for a staff member.
My guess is that we'll probably end up with some sort of a sticker system so that can identify people who belong there. And with that sticker system, it wouldn't surprise me that there's a fee associated with the sticker system, that you go to your town clerk and buy the sticker for whatever amount it is to help subsidize the cost. But that conversation hasn't taken place yet, but that's my guess.
Yeah, I anticipate you're probably right. Dog warden change in strays facility. The Vergennes Animal Hospital has contacted me. They are requesting to no longer be our facility where our dog warden Chaput brings strays, just due to staffing concerns. They just don't feel that they are staffed to be able to handle this going forward. I am working with Homeward Bound in Middlebury, who are receptive and are willing to be that facility for us, and I've communicated the change to Warden Chaput. There are going to be financial ramifications to that change, not the least of which is mileage for our dog warden. And I would hope that by the time we have our next meeting on the 13th, I will have a contract for the city council to review, for us to transfer that business down to Middlebury with Homeward Bound.
It seems appropriate that we have somebody named Chaput being the
Yeah, I
dog
know.
warden.
I thought it was a joke that Joan and Melissa were playing on me initially, but
I was gonna ask that question.
yeah, perfectly suited.
I'm glad that was
Yeah.
cleared up.
Perfectly suited. So annually, next item, number D, annually, Front Porch Forum requests donations in order to keep their publications going. We, as a city, utilize Front Porch Forum extensively for public warning, and I think it is an asset to the communities that they serve. Their request is last year, we supported them to the tune of $100, and I request permission of the council to be able to support them this year again to the tune of $100.
Anybody have any objections?
No.
Thank you all.
Sounds good.
At the end of last city council meeting, Alderman Bertram rightfully challenged me on our police department revenue. It must come with this chair, apparently, that it's a topic. I'm grateful to the city council's attention and glad to report that there was a delay in us being paid by the state of Vermont. So it's not like we take the cash right from the violator and it goes into the till. And that our police department is currently at 15.63% of their total budget. It continues to be a topic of conversation between myself and Chief Merkel. So there's a modest improvement there. And as I said to Alderman Bertram at the last meeting, Chief Merkel and his staff have been very receptive to targeted patrols. And when we're getting a call out, such as you made, that we're not seeing a decrease in speeding, and in fact we're seeing too much speeding going on. He's been really great about deploying accordingly. So thank you. And that's all I have today.
Okay, then we get to the mayor's report. First, I have a proclamation or a declaration. It's one of those feel-good declarations. We've done this for the last couple of years, so I'll read it. It's not too long. It's called Extra Mile Day. Whereas the Vergennes, Vermont is a community which acknowledges that a special vibrancy exists within the entire community when its individual citizens collectively go the extra mile in personal effort, volunteerism, and service. And whereas Vergennes, Vermont is a community which encourages its citizens to maximize their personal contribution to the community by giving of themselves wholeheartedly and with total effort, commitment, and conviction to their individual ambitions, family, friends, and community. And whereas Vergennes, Vermont is a community which chooses to shine a light on and celebrate individuals and organizations within its community who go the extra mile in order to make a difference and lift up fellow members of their community. And whereas Vergennes, Vermont acknowledges the mission of Extra Mile America to create 550 extra mile cities in America, and they do have 550 at this point, and is proud to support Extra Mile Day on November 1st, 2018. Now, therefore, I, Rennie Perry, Mayor of the City of Vergennes, Vermont, do hereby proclaim November 1st, 2018 to be Extra Mile Day. I urge each individual in the community to take time on this day to not only go the extra mile in his or her own life, but to also acknowledge all those who are inspirational in their efforts and commitment to make their organizations, families, community, country and world a better place. As I said, it's one of those feel-good things, but a lot of communities across the country do participate in it. Some a lot more than just a resolution. And the only other thing that I have is an invitation I think all of you got already, but I'm just going to make it again, an invitation to the Vergennes Partnership Blender. We choose to call it a blender because so many other organizations have mixers, and we want to distinguish ourselves from that, but it's very similar to what you would consider a mixer. It's tomorrow from 5 to 7 at SHACKSBURY CIDER. We've invited a lot of community leaders and folks. There's not going to be much in the way of speeches, so it's not one of those things, but it's just an opportunity to meet some of the business folks in Vergennes and some others. So you are cordially invited to attend. And with that, I and my mayor.
The motion to adjourn.
Okay, the motion has been made to adjourn and seconded. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.